channel. This book belongs to Fam. In today's video, I'm gonna be sharing with you my book picks or my TBR pile for my first ever readathon. I'm very excited. My first ever readathon is going to be ARMYdathon, which is a BTS inspired readathon made by Kat of her bookish side. So I'm gonna be leaving Kat's announcement video about ARMYdathon as well as relevant links in the description. The announcement video that I'm gonna link below will have all of the in-depth explanation for the readathon and the prompts, but I'm gonna go over the prompts as well as the books that I have picked for those prompts. So this readathon is starting on May 1st up until May 31st, which is the month before BTS's anniversary, which is in June. Quick note, before we move on with all of my book picks, trigger warnings or content warnings are going to be shown on the screen as well as in the description box. I'm going to add a timestamp as well so you can jump ahead if you don't want to hear about the specific book. Please read the trigger warnings to make sure that when you pick up a book, you know what you're getting into. So without further ado, let's go and check out my picks. The first prompt, I'm just looking at the prompt list here so I don't miss anything. First prompt is called Porahe, which is a Korean sort of slang, BTS slang, which combines Pora, which is purple, and He from Saranghe, which is I love you. So it's kind of like a BTS/ARMY slang for I love you, since purple is kind of the color of BTS now. So in this prompt, it says here that you have to read a book that has at least 50% purple color on the cover. The book that I'm thinking of reading is, I have two books under this category. The reason why I have multiple books is not because I want to read a lot of books per prompt. I can't do that. But I'm borrowing the books from the library, and a lot of the books have like a waiting list for it. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to get the book within the time frame of the readathon. So I have like backups that I already have so that I can make sure that I can read the book. My book pick for this prompt is Almond by Won-Pyung. This book is about a boy with a brain condition that renders him unable to process emotions and social cues in the same way that people without this condition do. Because of that, he relies a lot on his mother and grandmother to guide him and fill in the gaps for him in his everyday life. A tragedy unfortunately occurs and takes away his mother and his grandmother. So this book follows him as he struggles to cope with the loss and how he proceeds with his life after this tragedy. So that's the gist that I know of the book. I didn't really read much about it, but from what I know, it's very heart-wrenching and it's quite a short book. I believe it's less than 300 pages, which is what I was aiming for the books for this readathon since I don't want to overwhelm myself. So that is my book pick. My backup book pick for this prompt is The Vanishing Half by Brit, Bennet. This book is about identical black twin sisters who grew up in a small black community, but at the age of 16, they decide to run away. So this book just follows their life as well as the lives of their children because they end up going into two different paths. One of them sort of goes back to the small community that they grew up in and raises black children, but the other sister sort of tries to erase her black identity because she is white passing and she marries a white husband. So those are like the two different paths that they took, and I believe this is like a multi-generational book. And I really like that. One of the books I really love that's also multi-generational is Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. So I'm kind of also excited to read this, but it's my backup pick, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to read it on this readathon. So the next 7 prompts in ARMYdathon is based on each member. First member is RM, Kim Namjoon, and the prompt is based on one of his songs from his mixtape, which is Soul. So in this prompt, you have to read a book that is set in your home country. So in my case, Philippines. It kind of worked out well because I have been wanting to read this book. This is Si Janus, Silang at ang Tiyanak ng Tabon. I mentioned in my book collection video, which I will link in the cards, that I really wanted to start reading more books by Filipino authors and books that are written in Tagalog, which is my native language. And this fits that perfectly. What is this about? So this book is about a boy called Janus, and he plays this game called Tala. It's an RPG game where you fight these mythical creatures, Filipino mythical creatures. But the thing is, people keep dying. People who play this game keep dying. So that's kind of mysterious, right? So it just follows him as he tries to figure out the mystery of this game, because he didn't die. He played the game, he didn't die. So that's sort of the gist of this book. It's actually a series. I have all 4 books, but I'm just going to be reading the first one for this readathon. The next prompt is based on Jin, Kyung-Sook Jin, and it is inspired by solo song Epiphany. So in this prompt, you have to read a book that has the word me, myself, my, or I in the title. So the book that I'm going to be reading for this prompt is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This book is very, very popular, and I'm surprised that I haven't read it before, but I guess it's perfect time to read now. It's also, I think, short, like it's less than 300 pages, so that's perfect. And this book, if you haven't heard of it already, so we're following a girl who goes into this English boarding school. This boarding school is quite unique because they learn a lot about arts, about literature, all of those things, but they don't really learn of the outside world and what's really actually happening in the world around them. So they're sort of like confined in this boarding school, and they're very much sheltered in that sense. So it just follows this girl who grows, becomes a woman, and you know how this experience affects her and her outlook of the world. So that's sort of the gist that I got from reading the summary. I know nothing about the book except that it's very popular. It's on a lot of people's favorites list. So I'm very excited to read this for the ARMYdathon. The next prompt in this readathon is inspired by my bias, Minyoongi or Suga, and it is inspired by his song Shadow. So for this prompt, you have to read a scary book, a thriller, mystery, horror, or any book that will scare you. So I thought it would be perfect to read Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I have been wanting to read this book for a long time, but somehow I never did, so I'm glad to have this excuse to bump it up in my TBR pile. This book is about this little girl, Coraline, who lives in this house, and one day she discovers a passageway, like a secret passageway. So she goes in. On the other side, she sees a house that is very much like her own house, except that everything seems to be better. They have better food, better toys, better clothes. So she likes it there. But the thing is, there's also a mother and a father in that house. And apparently they want Coraline to become their little girl. They don't want to let go of Coraline. And eventually she starts discovering that there are also other children inside the house, and that's where the story begins. It's very creepy sounding and I'm super excited to read it. I think it's also somewhat short, which is great. So yeah, Coraline by Neil Gaiman. For the next prompt, it is inspired by J-Hope, Chung Ho-Suk, and it is based on his song Mama. So for this prompt, you have to read a book about a mother or about anyone who plays the role of a mother, whether that's grandmother, relative, single parent, queer parents, etc. So for this prompt, I am going to be reading the book Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-Sook. This book is about a 69-year-old mother who is separated from her husband accidentally in the hustle and bustle of, I'm not sure if it's a train station, and it follows the point of view of her children, who obviously feels very guilty. They feel very sad about not being able to find their mother and everything that transpires after that. So all of the difficulties that they face, the fighting in between the family members, things like that. It's very much like a family story kind of book, and I'm actually quite excited to read this. I think I first heard of this in one of Carrie's videos. Yeah, I think it's in one of her videos where she recommended Korean authors. I'm guessing this is gonna be a very heart-wrenching, sad book that will really make you think about your relationship with your family, your mother, and I think it's perfect for the prompt for Jaeho, which is Mama. The next prompt is based on Jimin, Park Jimin, and it is inspired by his song Serendipity. So in this prompt, you just have to read a romance book. But if you want to level up your experience, you can pick a smutty romance while listening to his song. So for this book, I hope this is not like cheating, but I think it still fits the prompt. I'm gonna be reading An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. So a little backstory, I recently read Sorcery of Thorns by the same author and I loved it. I really loved it. So I'm kind of excited to read this book. This is, I think she published this book earlier than Sorcery of Thorns, and I know that this is like a young adult fantasy book, but I have read and heard from multiple reviews that it has a very strong romance plot. So I think it fits. I hope. So what is this book even about? This book is about a girl who's a very talented painter. So in this world, apparently there are, regular people like the girl, and there's the fair folk. So these people are immortals. They have specific powers and skills, but the thing is they can't really create anything. So they can't create artwork, music, whatever. So all of those are sort of outsourced to the humans. So they get all of those creations from the humans. One day, one of the guys from the fair folk goes over to our main protagonist and commissions a painting. But when she sends over the painting, when she delivers the painting, this guy hates it. So what he does is he takes this girl, puts her to trial in the fair folk court, and that's where the story progresses. So I'm super excited to read this. I hope it fits the prompt. It's a romance, a very heavy romance heavy, that's what they say, book. So hopefully it's okay. Fingers crossed. Next prompt, our second to last prompt, is inspired by V or Kim Tae-hyung, and it is based on his song Sweet Night. So in this prompt, you have to read a book with a moon or a star on the cover or in the title. For this prompt, I am going to be reading Life as We Knew It by Susan Beth Pfeffer. I think I pronounced that right. I did Google it, so hopefully that's right. This is a thriller / science fiction book, and in this book, a meteor hits the moon. And because of this, the moon sort of shifts closer to the Earth. And because of that, it affects the tides, which then affects the weather, affects crops, affects everything basically. So it's kind of like an end of the world story. We read the story, or we learn of the story through the journal entries of this woman named Miranda. And that is pretty much the extent of what I know about this book. It's one of the longer reads in the whole list that I'm making for this readathon, so hopefully I can finish it in time. Last prompt in the ARMYdathon is based on Jungkook, JK, and it is inspired by his song Begin. So in this prompt, you have to read a debut book by an Asian author. So I have two books under this category. First book is These Violet Delights by Chloe Gong. I believe this is a series, and it is a Romeo and Juliet retelling that is set in the 1920s. I believe it involves gangs. That's pretty much the extent of what I know about this book. All I know that it's also very popular. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to read that book because it has like a 4-week wait in the library. So my backup pick is Smaller and Smaller Circles by F.H. Batacan. This is a Filipino book written in English. I believe in this book we are following a Jesuit priest who is also a forensic anthropologist as he sort of figures out what happened in this crime. So a crime occurs and we're kind of playing detective and trying to figure out what happens, and that is like the basic gist of it. This won like awards and everything, especially because it was like unique for its time. I think it was the first ever Filipino detective / mystery novel. So I'm very excited to read this. I don't have a copy yet, but because this is a Filipino book, it's easy for me to get a copy, and I might just do that if I'm not able to get These Violet Delights from the library. that's it. Those are all of my picks for ARMYdathon. I am super excited, also kind of overwhelmed and intimidated by my list, but I'm happy to have this as my first ever readathon. And if you want to join this readathon, I will have all of the links on how to join and all of the prompts and everything in the description box, so please check that out. So thank you to Kat of Her Bookish Side for creating this readathon. I am super excited to see everyone's TBR and book picks and how they interpreted the prompts in their own way. And also I'm excited to watch everyone's like reading vlogs or wrap-ups. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might do a reading vlog and a wrap-up, but you'll just have to subscribe to find out. I hope you like this video. Please let me know in the comments if you are joining the ARMYdathon, and let me know what your picks are and if you have the same pick as I do. I'm very interested in seeing everyone's picks for this readathon. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!